Hello and welcome to this lecture where we'll go into Plotly and Plotly Express. And here we will plot graphs that are interactive. So this will be really fun. And you have probably worked with Matplotlib or Seaborn before. And this is a little bit different, but still quite similar. At least the API is somewhat similar to Seaborn, but you still have a lot of other things that you can do in Plotly and Plotly Express. So we'll start with some interactive charting from that. So let's go into the Visual Studio Code. So now I'm in Visual Studio Code and I have created a virtual environment, and you should have a virtual environment as before, but if you don't have, do UV, VENV. So now I'll just activate it. So source.ven /bin /activate. And if you're in Windows, it's source.ven /scripts /activate. So a little bit different there. So I'll clear my terminal here. And now I have my virtual environment, and I will install some packages. You need IPyKernel if you don't have it already to work with Jupyter Notebooks. And then you will need Plotly, and you will need, let's see, what else do we need? We need Pandas. That should be enough, I think. Yes, I've installed it. So now let's create our Plotly Express stuff. This notebook will work with Plotly Express, that is for interactive charting. So I'll choose my virtual environment here. And then in Markdown, I'll say this is Plotly Express interactive data visualization. And I'll show you why it's interactive very soon. So let's start with importing plotly.express as px. And then we'll get some data from the famous Gapminder. And if you have followed along with in the media for around 10 years ago, I think, or a little bit before, there was a guy called Hans Rosling that has been very famous for doing a lot of visualization and educating the public about using the data from Gapminder. So let's get that. So Gapminder equals to px.data. So here we have Gapminder, and we can see what this data is. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time first time when we're running it. And you can see here, okay, 1,700 rows, and you can see a lot of countries and the continents, year, life expectancy, population, etc. Okay, so starting with this, let's create a new code here, and I'll actually run .head here. And then I'll do Gapminder dot column dot shape so that you can see the shape. So it's 1,704 rows, columns. Okay, and then we can do some small, like a little bit of EDA first. So let's do like this. We can find out Gapminder continent dot unique, and you can see we need to have a callable like this. So you can see it's Asia, Europe, Africa, Americas, and Oceania. Okay, and you can continue doing a little bit more. For example, Gapminder.describe, forgot the parentheses like this, and you can see this is, you can see life expectancy, the mean of it, standard deviation, etc., and population, etc., and GDP per capita. Okay, also interesting is we should look into the year. So we have 1952 as the minimum, and the maximum is 2007. These are good things to know, but we won't get stuck into EDA so much. Instead, we will continue to do some plotting. So let's start with getting the Nordic countries. I'm interested in that. So Gapminder, I will pick out, if I write Nordic now, you can see this is the whole data frame. But if I pick out the countries now, let's say country, and you can see all the countries, right? And in the countries, I can do like this. Plot this in. I can choose which countries I want to pick from here. So then I get all the rows. I get all the ones that correspond to these countries. For example, I want to have Sweden. Then I will get all the false, and some are true. Those that are true are those corresponding to Sweden. And then I'll pick out Norway, and I'll pick out Iceland, and I'll pick out Denmark. And let's see, do we have one more? Right, Finland. I forgot you. So what you can see is that all are false, right? But actually it's not, because if you do, for example, this value counts here, value counts, and you can see that there's actually 60 that are true. So we have 1644 that are false. And the reason why it was it only showed false before was because the series is too long to display all of them. Note that, okay, what does it help with getting this mask? We get this true and false values, right? And with that, we can actually pick out, if we do Gapminder like this, we will pick out all the rows that correspond to true. By doing this, I remove value counts. You can see that I only get those rows that correspond to the countries within this list. So I get all the Denmark, all Finland, all Iceland, all Norway, and all Sweden. So I get all the Nordic countries now. So Nordic.head. And we can see we have here only the top ones. So if I do Nordic, for example, I'll do like this, Nordic 2007 equal to Nordic of Nordic year equals to 2007. So why is that? Because this has to do with, it's the same reason as before. So Nordic year equals 2007. We'll get true and false series. This is the mask. And based on this mask, we can extract all the rows that correspond to 2007. So if I write Nordic 2007 now, you can see these are all the rows that correspond to 2007 from the Nordic data frame. So that's why we have here Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden from 2007. Okay, great. And also let's do another EDA. So let's do Nordic dot country, the Nordic of country, and then we do dot value counts. And here you can see that, okay, we have 12 rows for each of these countries. Okay, and if I, for example, want to pick out Sweden, I could do like this, Gapminder of minder. Let's say Gapminder of country equals to Sweden. And you can see a lot of true or false. And then we can pick Gapminder of this. And then we get all the rows that correspond to Sweden. So this one I will also save as a variable. So Sweden equals to this, because I want to plot the Nordic countries to compare, and then I will plot the Swedish countries and their features. So let's move on to, let's start with a bar chart. So you have probably done bar charts in Matplotlib. So let's do like this. So fig, let's see, px.bar. That is all we need. So Sweden is the data frame. And then we pick out what should the X correspond to. And I pick the column year. And Y, what should it correspond to? I can pick population, for example. Pop. Let's see, it says an error here. It says NB format 4.2.0 not installed. Okay, so let's do that. UV pip install NB format. Okay, done. And then I will rerun this one. Okay, let's see. If I do UV pip show NB format, it says version 5.10. Maybe I need to restart this one. And then I run all. Yes, there's no error. Okay, so this is the bar chart. And here you can see the interactivity. So when I'm hovering over it, I can see which year it is and how much population. And I can zoom in if I want. So here I have zoomed in. And if I double click, I come back. And I can pan it. So I can click pan. I can move it around. And double click to come back. So this is the interactivity of using Plotly and Plotly Express. We can give it a title equals to population in Sweden between 1952 and 2007. And you can see here's the title. And we can also have some labels here. So labels equals to, and this requires a dictionary. So we can change this year and this pop into whatever we want. For example, change it to population. And you can see it becomes population. And I can do similar for year. I can change it to year with capital letters. And population, I also do it with capital letters to be consistent. So you can see here, population, year. And I will do auto formatting here. Okay, so formatting Shift F to enable black formatting. So this is my Plotly Express graph. So I can continue now. Let's do a Nordic graph to compare. px.bar, Nordic 2007, x equals to country, and y equals to GDP per. And you can see here is the different GDP per capita for the different countries. So you can see that in 2007, Norway was much higher than the rest. Let me see, 33, and this is 36. Okay. Yeah. So this was the bar plot, and we can move on to line chart here. Line chart. Let's change to Python here. px.line will take Sweden, for example. X equals to year. Remember that it needs to be a column name in the data frame. And y could be the GDP per capita. GDP, so y equals to GDP per cap. And also similar to here in the bar chart, we could change the labels as well and the title, and that is good practice to do. And similarly with line chart, you can do that. Let's just take the title. Title GDP per capita in Sweden. And you can see here's the plot, and you can hover over it as well. So let's move on to some hover setting. So this is quite interesting. When you want to hover over, you can do a little bit of customization here. So let's do like this. So fig equals to px.line. And let's do Nordic. And x equals to year and y equals to GDP per cap. And we can start with this one. And if you write fig like this, you need to do fig.show. And the reason why I write fig like this is because I want to update some layout in my fig. So here, this is really not useful, right? And the reason why it becomes like this is due to all the So all the years are shown and all the countries in Nordic are shown. So let's do like this: color equals to country. And you can see now it's a little bit like you have Norway, you have Iceland, and you have Denmark and Sweden and Finland. However, as you can see, it's a little bit hard for me to find the lines to hover over. So let's change a little bit of the hover settings. Okay, so starting with some other things we can do here, we can do like title equals to Nordic countries GDP per capita 1952 to 2007. And let's do a layout now. So fig.update layout. And we can do hover mode equals to X. So when doing this and I run this, we can see that I can hover over only the X. When I go in X-axis, we will have hover over all of them. Okay, so that is a little bit easier for me to read and compare. And we can also do this: fig.update X-axis, show spikes equals to true. If I run this one, we can see that there's a spike here. A little bit hard to see, but there is. And we can also do this: spike dash equals to solid. We can choose it spike color equals to green. And we can do spike mode equals to cross. If I run this one, you can see that there's a spike, like the vertical line here. However, there's one more setting I want. I want spike snap equals to cursor. By doing this, you can see that it follows my cursor. And this is a little bit neater for me to work with. So you can customize a lot of things. You can customize the width of these lines, etc. And when you wonder, how should I customize different things? Then we can move on to the browser. And in the browser, you can search for line charts in Plotly. So go into here. And this is, here they also use Gapminder as example. So here you can see this is the line chart that they have, just basic like the one we did. And then there's a lot here, they plot two of them, like we also plotted two. And then there's something called Dash, which you can use for making web applications and dashboards. And also there is some other documentation, and you can just follow these whenever you need something like this. If you do need markers, you add markers equals true. So this documentation is done quite well. So you can go in there and read and learn different things that you can do. Let's see. This is something called graph objects, which we won't go through in this lecture. But let's go back to Visual Studio Code. And let's do one last graph here. Gapminder bubble chart. So when you have many dimensions, you can use something called the bubble chart to visualize them. And in the bubble chart, you can control the size, X and Y, the hover data, the coloring. So based on that, you can actually visualize a lot of data. I will show you an example here, Gapminder. And this is also, probably you won't need this, but in case you need, there's a possibility that you can do this. Line charts and bar charts are the most important and most common ones. But in Plotly, there are a lot of options for plotting other stuffs. You can see here, and I will show you an animation with this as well. So in order to plot this, we have this. So fig equals to px.scatter, it's called, Gapminder. X equals to GDP per cut. y equals to life expectancy. And we can do fig.show. And you can see, yeah, this is really odd right now because a lot of them are copied several times because we have, for example, Afghanistan, we have a lot of them. We have 12 of each. So what should we do now? We do size equals to pop. And you can see it now the size changes based on how large the country is. And now we also do color equals to country. And you can see that, now you can see a legend here as well. So each of the colors correspond to the countries here, but they are still too small. Let's do max size equals to 70. Let's see, size max is called. Size max, like this. Okay, so now it becomes a little bit bigger. And you can see there's a lot of copies here. For example, you can see Vietnam several times. And in order to remove the copies, we will use something called animation so that we can animate it so that it changes for each year. So the copies depends on that there's a lot of different years. So let's do that. So animation frame equals to year. So now you can see that from 1952, there's only one of them. So one United States, one Australia, etc. Because now each of the year has one state or one set of countries. And we do animation group. We choose country. So that you can see that the countries will change now. And let's do some title equals to Gapminder animation. And also let's do log x equals to true. And with logarithm, you can see that it is now you can see it's to the power of 10, so that this makes it a little bit easier to see the differences, because when you're visualizing small values and large values together, it's good to make it into a logarithmic scale. And also we can do the range of x here. We can do range x equals to 100, comma, let's see, 1, 2, 3. So it goes from 100 to 100K here for GDP per capita. Let's see, and we can, yeah, this is quite nice. Let's see, before we start the animation, let's see what this represents. So for example, China here. We can see from 1952, they had GDP per capita, 400 something, and a life expectancy of 44, and population of, yeah, you can see maybe 556 million. I'm not sure. Too many numbers, but probably. And here, yeah, here's United States. Okay, so you can see that a lot of the color is based on what country it is, the size, the population, and X and Y. X is the GDP per capita, and so the more to the right, the better. And life expectancy is how long they live, expected to live, and the higher, the better. And then we have for each year. As you can see, there's a lot of things going on into this simple visualization. So let's start the world engine. And you can see it changes. Everything is going up, actually. Yes, actually, we need one more field cutting. Range Y, 25 to 90. Run it again. And you can see when I run this now, you can see that everything is moving up to the up here. And you can see a lot of very poor countries have gone to at least in the middle. So everything is moving upward. And that is good, upward and to the right. So this is a simple this is the Gapminder animation. Actually, it looked like a lot of code when I typed it out, but actually it's not, to make this cool animation. But that is just one thing that I show you that can be done in Plotly Express, but in many cases it's enough with just line charts and with bar charts. And with line and bar charts, you can also customize a lot of different things. So with this, I would like to thank you for watching this video and see you in the next video. Bye.